Hi, my name's Christie. I started working when I was just 9 years old. You might think that's weird, but you don't know the weirdest part. My job was selling things that belonged to dead people. Creepy, but true. Here's my story. My mom and dad own a company that does estate sales. If you don't know what that is, it's kind of like an auction, except we sell the dead person's stuff right out of their old house. It makes sense when you think about it. The dead people's kids can make money from all the leftover stuff they didn't want for themselves and empty out the house at the same time. So anyway, that explains how our family even got a hold of dead people's junk in the first place. And it's more common than you think. I started helping my mom right after I turned 9. Our first job was to look through these houses for good stuff to sell. We called it raiding, which totally made it feel like a game to me. I felt like such an adventurous pirate. We'd map out the whole house and all the treasures we found. China and artwork, old records and books, you name it. I was really good at wriggling into tiny nooks and finding hidden treasures. Once I even found an old diamond ring behind a chest of drawers. It was a real diamond too. I wanted to keep it, but Mom said we had to sell it because it wasn't ours to keep. Dad's job was to print out little price tags, so I helped him do that too. I loved playing dress up. Sometimes I'd put on the pretty jewelry and dresses and pretend to be a Russian princess, or a man's old coat and shoes and pretend to be a dad who went into an office. It never felt like I was doing work, because every house was a new adventure with a different story. I did get creeped out though, when I'd be walking around upstairs all alone, especially if it was a big old creaky house. But I guess, maybe if I was the ghost, I'd get mad if some strange kid was walking all over my house trying to sell my stuff too. So I'd talk out loud to the ghosts about what I was finding and what I was doing, and try to make them feel better. Although, between you and me, the talking out loud made me feel better too. When I turned 13, I graduated to working the cash register. It was usually propped up on an old table by the door, so that the people who came in to wander around the house could buy what they wanted on their way out. I trained my little sister Kara to take over my old job of house raiding. I taught her what to look for, and she took her job very seriously. I loved the feeling of responsibility, of teaching her, helping customers, taking care of the money. I felt like such a real adult, tapping on the keys of the register with my chipped nail polish. There were a couple of downsides though, mostly people who tried to shoplift. Actually, I'm not sure if it's called shoplifting if you're doing it from a dead person's house, but either way they were stealing. It was always people you didn't expect also. Nice, frail-looking old ladies, sliding little items into their purses when they thought no one was looking. Once a lady asked to use the bathroom, and when my sister went to check on her, she was going through the kitchen cupboards. This was my introduction to the fact that people aren't always what they seem. Usually, if one of us pointed it out, they'd pretend that they had just picked it up and forgotten they were holding it. We let them get away with that one. It was too much trouble to report them to the police anyway. If Dad was around, he'd give them a stern look and get whatever they were stealing back. I can only remember him having to call the police once, and that was when this crazy guy tried to run off with an entire TV in his arms. Not cool. Other people would show up crazy early. When we had a sale starting at 9 a.m., there would always be at least 5 people knocking on the door between 6 and 9, wanting to know if they could have an early sneak peek before everyone else. And that was while we were super busy preparing everything. They also wanted to know whether we had a special deal for early birds. Dad's answer was always the same. Sure we do. Early birds pay double for everything. Yeah, I don't remember any of them wanting to take a look after hearing that. Then, during the sale, people would make absolutely ridiculous offers for things we had for sale. For example, one time we had a box of about 100 CDs that we were selling for $2 each. One guy said that we'd never sell them and offered us only $5 for the whole box. My dad said it was up to me. I declined the offer and the guy was furious. He called me a clueless child and said those CDs were worthless. Guess what? By the end of the day, we sold about 40 of them, making $80 instead of the 5 he offered. Not too bad, right? I was so proud of myself. It was probably right around this same time that I started to realize that other people's parents had very different jobs than mine. My friends' parents mostly went to work in offices. Some kids were mean to me about our family's job, being creepy, sure. But honestly, most of them thought it was cool that I even had a job at 13, and the creepy factor added an element of mystery. I liked how interested they all were in my creepy job. As soon as someone found out what I did, they'd ask what the weirdest thing I'd seen in a dead person's house was. I made up stories about seeing ghosts just to shock them, but in reality, The weirdest thing was probably just a bunch of gross stuffed animals up on a wall. A few even asked if they could come to work with my family one day. Yeah, no way that's happening. Although, my best friend Melissa was allowed to come with me sometimes. Never on the first day when we raided the whole house though. But she could sit with me at the cash register and help out whenever she felt like it. I liked feeling like I was an expert at something, teaching her how to run the register or how much different things are usually sold for. Just like a lot of jobs, Mom and Dad's income varied. Sometimes there would be a house with tons of interesting hidden treasures, like the engagement ring I found, and then we would buy new clothes and nice dinners for a month or two. And sometimes it was harder. We wouldn't have a house for a couple weeks, or the houses just had a bunch of fake costume jewelry, old clothes, and broken furniture that was basically worthless. Those times, we'd eat a lot of instant ramen. But Mom and Dad smiled and said this was just part of the business. They always knew things would pick back up if we just kept working hard, and they were usually right. Things always picked back up. Things might change when I graduate and go to college, but for now, I still help out on the cash register, although my little sister is quickly learning that too. I don't think, though, that estate sales is the career I want to go into when I'm older. I've always wanted to be a vet because I love dogs and I want to help them. But I will never regret spending my childhood helping my parents sell dead people's junk. I learned a lot about people and how to manage a small business. And most importantly, I got to bond with my family every day in a way that most kids never get to. I would never trade this for having lawyers or doctors as parents. Professions that sound cool but often mean seeing your mom and dad way less. Did you have a weird job when you were a teenager? Or do your parents have jobs that are different from your friends' parents? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed my story, please like and subscribe so we can bring more stories to you. Thanks for watching!